This is Age of Empires 4, doing a coaching review for our green player here and his teammate, the yellow player. So we're not going to go through every nitpicky item that they could get better at. We'll do a few small items, few big items. Green posted on Reddit just saying what could we have done better in the game to win. So that's what I'm taking a look at. I'm going to speed the beginning up. Game's about 24 minutes. First small item here is if you put your sheep under your town center, your villagers don't have to walk back and forth from the town center. Sometimes easier said than done. But you can see the guys that are close to the town center, the villagers, they pick it up and immediately drop off. Sheep that are farther away don't. So your chapel placement here, when I have watched this replay, it's not in range of your sheep even when you move your sheep out here. So a big thing here is when you get more sheep later, I would have loved to have seen you just move the chapel back a little bit so that the radius also hit over here on the town center, or just move the sheep in range of the chapel. Because the problem is going to be you're going to do a lot of gathering of sheep and it's not under the chapel, which is not very ideal. So you want as much under that chapel radius as you can get. Yeah, I mean, honestly, if we look at this, I don't play HRE a whole lot. You probably could have just thrown the chapel right here. I don't know when you threw the house down, but if we're thinking about the chapel radius, if you put it here, it would have gotten your gold, but you know you want to go fast castle, so that's great. It's on your gold. It's on your wood. So when you transition to farms later, you're going to want to be collecting food fat or wood fast. And it would have hit your sheep down here, so you wouldn't have really had to even change anything. So it does get the berries here, technically the stone later, but if we're looking at a fast castle build here, which you're doing because you're building an outpost, really would have been good to have the chapel get gold, food, and wood. That would have been pretty huge here. Advice for yellow, since I spent a lot of time watching yellow before this, is yellow needs to follow a build order. The easiest thing I would advise for him is, as English, kind of the beginner's guide is you do 7 villagers on food in Dark Age, 3 villagers on gold, and then you use the gold villagers to build your council hall. That's kind of the easy way to do it. So I'm going to look at you more specifically during this. And something that occurs with your outpost placement here is if you're going to put arrow slits on this, you probably should have put it more in front of the gold mine out here, because longbows are going to come bother your gold mine. Oh, there they are. So if this outpost had been out more in front, they couldn't get right here to shoot your villagers. And with how these trees are, they couldn't have gotten around the back to shoot you either because of the town center. So you clean it up with a horseman. It's all good. But if we're looking at going fast castle, would have been ideal if you didn't have to make a horseman there. Excuse me. So here's what I'm talking about with the chapel range. You've got one group of berries in your chapel. If the chapel was here, you'd have your gold villagers, your wood villagers, and you could have had the sheep here, and your chapel would have been hitting the sheep. Instead, you've just got your berry villagers here under the chapel, which is a pretty big deal because the inspiration is 40% more resources, 40% gathering rate. So you've got 8 food villagers without that buff. You'd probably already have, if you had not had to build a horseman with correct outpost placement and these guys were inspired, you'd probably already be going to castle right now. So that's just a bit of a timing thing. could greatly increase your timing there. And if we look at yellow, something I noticed in the last replay, this is not a dig at him, but when he or she goes to age up to castle, we kind of want to think through, like, why do we age up? Like, what is our strategy when we age up to castle? And for HRE, it's we want to get relics. So you want to get the castle as fast as possible, get your relics, and you're good to go. Your game kind of starts from there. For English, what do we want to see from English if he's going to castle age, which is what he's going to do? And if I was playing English, I don't really play them a whole lot in 2v2, but if I was going to play them in 1v1 and I went white tower, I would think, all right, I'm going to build a couple knights and immediately raid. If he's not going to do that, then the proper play is probably to build a second town center immediately in Feudal and start ecoing up. Because he doesn't really use the white tower to his advantage. He uses it defensively, which is fine, but no one's really raiding him, so it's not really necessary. So I want y'all to think about when you age up, what's the goal? What is the goal behind aging up? For HRE, it's going to be getting relics. For English, we need to have a goal when we're aging up. Is the enemy pushing with a bunch of men-at-arms and we need crossbows? Then, yeah, let's age up and get crossbows. Are we going to make knights and raid? If so, that's great. But if we're just going to build the white tower to protect this gold, we could just done that with a second town center and be making more villagers. Yeah, I like that you start raiding here with the horsemen. And I would say as soon as you hit castle, you start making knights, which you do. If I check eco upgrades, it's fine if you haven't gotten your eco upgrades yet, but once you get these relics in, you really want to start grabbing these early eco upgrades like wheelbarrow, horticulture, double broadaxe. And since you're going to be getting all the relics, you know, yellow doesn't really achieve anything by going castle here because the relics are going to you, not him. He finally gets a mill down. If I was playing English, I would probably advise getting wheelbarrow a lot earlier than he gets it. Probably be my first upgrade with him. Except maybe double broadaxe, which I think he has. Okay, so other thing about going up to Castle Age. If you go up to Castle Age, you need to be thinking about what technologies do I immediately need to research. And we can see yellow has 800 food, 600 gold. You need to get veteran longbowmen immediately. That's kind of like if you're going to Castle Age, you're going up so that you have better units. So if you go to Castle Age and you don't get that technology, again, it's like, why did you go to Castle Age? So that's just always something to keep in the back of your mind of when I age up, what's my game plan and what technologies am I immediately going to research? Because if I was him, I would say I immediately get veteran longbowman and I get double broadaxe immediately. He could get both of those right now. And I think he had some idle time on the TC earlier in the game. It happens, but just something to keep in mind. And I like that you start palisading up here. Because red hypothetically should be building mounted samurai here and trying to raid you, so I like that you're palisading. Yeah, it's a dangerous relic to get. Yeah, there is a relic all the way down here you picked up, and then one behind your base, which you need to grab. And so this is where you really start stacking up the gold. And if you're stacking up 1,000 gold, there's two things you need to be thinking about, which is what technologies have I gotten or have I not gotten that I need to get? And if I've gotten all the technologies I need and I'm stacking up gold, throw it out on the market and trade the gold for food, or just take some guys off gold and move them to food and kill some of these deer. So something that really gets you here is no eco technologies out of the mill, which is a big one. Because you're in castle, I'm fine with going castle without them. You want to make knights and get the prelates out, but when you've got 1,500 gold, get wheelbarrow, survival techniques, horticulture. You're on deer, so anytime you're on deer, just get survival techniques. It's pretty cheap. Wheelbarrow is a must. Horticultures, you're building farms, got to get that. You've got double broadaxe. The level 2 woodcutter, level 2 mining, which is important. And if you're going to attack with knights and you're going to do raiding, you really need the ranged armor upgrades to protect yourself from the town centers. That's pretty crucial. You've got the resources for it, so just go ahead and snag it. Yeah, I love this attack. That's what we should be doing the rest of the game if I was you. And I would just take 2 of these knights while you're burning down the outpost, hit the wood line. He's going to come try to stop you here, which is, he will, but... So what you did right there, I want to see you do that 15 more times. Because you kind of get that one good raid in, and then you don't really get another good raid in the whole time, I feel like. And that's probably the biggest problem with this game. You and Yellow are both playing very passively. If you're going to play passive and defend, then you need to have a lot more eco than your enemy. And that is not a situation that y'all are in right now. There's probably 2 things you could do right now. Doesn't really matter to me which one you do. If your opponent's playing passive and you're not under immediate threat, you have a lot of gold. You could get some more food. I see you're building a second town center here. You could get some more food. You probably could have just not gone for the second town center, and you could have built a Palace of Swabia. And you'd be in Imperial right now, or at least going to Imperial, and that Palace of Swabia would way outscale this second town center. Now, if you were getting pushed and you just need a little more eco and you want to just throw down a second TC, that's fine. I'm cool with that. Y'all are both floating a lot of resources, so you just always want to be asking yourself, what do I need to do with the resources that I have? So same with blacksmith upgrades here. Yellow has 25 longbows right now. He did get the veterancy upgrade. If you're building longbows, we can see he got the melee armor upgrade twice here. If you're building longbows, it's kind of a must to get the range damage upgrade. Especially if you're going up against another English guy across from him. Because if he's gotten it, he's gotten +1. He hasn't gotten +2 yet. But if he gets that, he's just going to, like longbow to longbow, he's going to destroy Yellow. So something I would look out for if I was playing Yellow was getting my +1 range damage. That's pretty important. And you have 22 knights in your base. You should go hit the enemy eco. You don't even have to take all 22 of them. Yeah, I like what you're doing here. You're going to defend the sacred site, kill the priest. But you should just have 1, 2 knights in different groups. Maybe you can't do it all at one time, but let's say you just take a group of 2 knights then that you're controlling. and you run around the base and hit these guys. Because right now they're just chilling in their base, building a big army to come crush you. That's what blue's going to do right here. Yellow probably shouldn't take this fight. I don't know if he saw this beforehand. Maybe he didn't. But if he saw how big this army was, he should have turned around. But since blue's got 2 town centers, he's just going to be able to outscale yellow. Yellow's got a lot of resources in the bank. So yellow could have made a lot more units here. Could have gotten blacksmith upgrades. Could have thrown down more town centers for better eco. But yeah, blue's got him here. Since blue's eco, I don't think blue's lost a villager. And he's on 2 town centers. He's going to clean you up here. And the unit comp here, if you look at it, blue doesn't really, he's probably got spears for the green knights. But he's got crossbows and fronting units. So he's going to be able to chew through the men-at-arms of the crossbows and then finish off your yellow's longbows. And since he's got spear crossbow, he can also fight the knights. So he's got a strong unit comp here. There's a good wraparound you did to get to the range units. Control A probably made your units split like that. So from here, it kind of just goes to them breaking into the base and starting to kill things. When you get to this point in the game where they've got too much army and you can't fight it off, not that this always works, but personally, I would take my knights and I would go attack the enemy eco. He's got a bunch of guys on gold. Bunch of guys getting farms. He's got more guys than he can garrison, right? In this entire area, he can garrison 15 villagers. And he has 59. So if you roll in there with 20 knights, you're going to kill a lot of villagers. At least 10, I would say, that you would get. I know he's got some units here. But normally when they commit their whole army up here, they've got nothing at home. So same with blue here. Blue's got 92 villagers. And he has 25 garrison slots. So if you had 20 knights in this guy's base, even if yellow just built 1 or 2 knights out of the white tower and slipped them over here, he's going to have massive idle time. So what y'all could have done better to win this game in broad strokes is, 1, a consistent and well thought out strategy. So in Age of Empires, you always have to adapt your strategy, right? You can't be inflexible. However, if it's fine, like your strategy is you're going fast castle, you're going to get relics, and then you're going to make knights, and you should continually pressure and raid the enemy until y'all have a big enough combined army to just push in and beat them, right? But at the end of the day, if you can get map control with knights and starve your enemy out, then that's great. We need a specific strategy yellow's going to go for that meshes with your strategy. Because right now, he gets his village, he's building villagers, he's getting resources, he's making units, but what's the strategy behind that? You kind of want to find something to mesh with the HRE strategy. Maybe that's he does a longbow rush and tries to apply pressure to the enemy while you go up to castle. Or maybe he plays more passive and he builds a second town center and he builds a bigger eco where he can make a larger army later in the game where y'all can push together at that point. So you need to kind of think through what's our game plan going to be. Second big takeaway is, when you do go up to castle, you really need to think through why am I going to castle? What technologies am I going to get? What economic upgrades am I going to get? So you and yellow both, I would say, need to kind of go through and think about when I'm aging up to castle, what are my priority technologies that I'm going to grab, blacksmith and eco, and make sure you grab that as soon as you can once you go up to castle. So for HRE, I know you're going to be grabbing relics first, but as soon as you grab those and you start floating a little bit of gold, we want to start grabbing economic upgrades, then grabbing blacksmith upgrades. If you're playing English, you go to castle. If you've got longbows, you immediately get veteran longbowmen. So there really shouldn't be a scenario where you age up to castle and you've got 20 longbows, unless you're never going to make longbows again. You get the veterancy upgrade immediately, and you get your ranged attack immediately as well. So those are kind of my two key takeaways. Is one, y'all want to have kind of an overall strategy of, hey, this is how we're going to play the game, and that doesn't mean you can't adapt that strategy in game. You know, you always want to use the counter system to your advantage. If someone's making a lot of spears, you make archers to kill it. If someone's making a lot of men-at-arms, you make crossbows. But as far as like overall strategy of I'm going fast castle as HRE, what do you want the English guy to do to kind of mesh in with that? That's important. And that second big takeaway just being technologies, eco, and blacksmith and military. When you age up, you need to have in mind what you're going to grab, and you grab those as early as possible. If you don't grab those when you age up, I'll always ask the question, what was the point in aging up? You know, if you don't immediately upgrade your units, well, you could have just stayed in Feudal and made more units and tried to attack the enemy in Feudal. So that's the way I think about it. And third takeaway being, Green got one raid on this gold mine, very effective raid. Other than that, red and blue sat back, went through their build orders, were not bothered, did not lose villagers. So you got to apply some pressure to your enemy. I mean, this guy's actually got 3 villagers on 2 HP on a front gold mine. So you should be able to, if these knights came out of this gold mine right now, you'd kill probably 10 villagers on this gold mine. So key takeaway there just being, you always want to apply pressure to your enemy. You always want to attack. That doesn't mean you have to take your whole army and get it massacred in the enemy base. But you need some sort of raiding unit. You can take 1 knight, 2 knight, doesn't have to be all of your knights. And you want to attack, constantly attack and raid to keep your enemy on the back foot. If you can keep them on the back foot with your raiding and you have map control, it's very hard for them to move out of their base and come attack yours. So if you have any questions for me, just let me know. I hope that was helpful to you guys. Try to go through kind of the big key takeaways here rather than very small things for y'all to work on. So hopefully that's helpful.